Alright guys, so today we are continuing our lesson on transversals and their relationships with the angles in which they share. So if you have not completed these notes from Tuesday, now we had a PSAT day in between there where we tested at school, so these are at the bottom of the notes that we went over in Tuesday's video. So I suggest that if you have not printed this out and completed this homework from page 183, that's where you start first. And then we're going to take a look at these examples in just a moment, okay? But for today, where we are starting is on the parallel lines and transversals worksheet. It looks like this. There is a blank one listed in Schoology. It is a front and a back page worksheet, okay? So the front is pretty self-explanatory. It goes just along the lines of the worksheet that we did in our notes, where you identify the transversal and list the relationship of the angles. It just kind of does it in reverse, okay? It's telling you the two pairs of angles and that they're alternate interior, and then you are identifying those angles on the right. But this is where I want to draw your attention, is at the bottom. So again, this is already filled out. There's a blank one on Schoology, and my answers are posted as well. So it says, use the diagram to state the relationship between the angles, solve for x, and find the two angle measures. So this is the diagram in question. We have line L and line M that are parallel. It tells you that in the instructions right here. So if you are like me and need a visual, put your notation on there so that you know that they are parallel. And then that makes this line our transversal. So today I want us to look at numbers 5, 10, and 13. So here's number 5. I'm going to zoom in. So it says the measure of angle 1 and the measure of angle 3. So if you look up at the diagram, they're both on the left-hand side of the transversal. They're both on top of their parallel lines. And this is how I want you to write it on your paper. If lines are parallel, then we know these guys are corresponding angles, which means that they are congruent. Now guys, tomorrow we're leading into proofs. This is the language that we want to see in your proofs. Therefore, we want you to practice writing this on your paper. If you're starting with parallel lines, which we are in our diagram, we know angle 1 and angle 3 will be corresponding, which means their measures are congruent. So we set them equal, we solve for x, and we get x is 4. But then, guys, you can always check your math, plugging it back in. 2 times 4 plus 16 and 7 times 4 minus 4. Making sure that you're getting that both angle measures are 24 degrees. Okay, that is a way in which to check your math. Alright, so the main thing, notice I have written it, I have highlighted it, I have talked about it in this video, so therefore that is the language that I'm looking for in your proofs starting tomorrow. Alright, now we're going to go down to number 10. It gave us the measure of angle 2 and the measure of angle 3. So if lines are parallel, what do we know about 2 and 3? They are consecutive interior angles, which means their measures are supplementary. What do we know about supplemental angles? They're equal to 180. So therefore, we're going to add them together, setting them equal to 180. This one's pretty easy. He's linear, which means x to the first power. So we get x is equal to 17, plugging them both back in, and we get angle 88 and 92. Added together would give us 180. Okay, now, let's go to number 13. There's a reason why I picked this one, you know that. So, angle 2 and angle 3, if lines are parallel, consecutive interior angles are supplemental. So notice that the same angles as we just used in number 10, but now this time we have a quadratic. So we're going to add the two angle measures together, setting it equal to 180. Combine like terms, but guys, because he is a quadratic, I'm going to subtract my 180 from both sides, setting our quadratic equal to 0. Now we're going back to yesterday's lesson where I gave a little soapbox speech about factoring. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to give 32, but when added give 12. So we have 4 and 8. So when we take out the values of x, we get x is -4 and x is -8. Okay, so you're probably wondering, why did I cross out -4? So guys, if you take -4 and you plug it in up here, you get -8 and 188. Now I know what you're thinking, well, if I add those together I get 180, so why don't they work? My question to you is, can we have a negative angle measure? No. So therefore, x is equal to -4 will not work. So this is what it says. I want you to show your work, but you cannot keep it. So I want you to show to me where you plugged it in, you've proven to yourself that it will not work, and then you mark it out. X is equal to -8. When you plug it in, we get angle measure 16 and 164 added together do give us 180. Therefore, the only value that x can be is -8. Okay, so what you would do tonight, I'm leaving you, we did 5, 10, and 13. In class, if you're a face-to-face student, in class we're going to finish the rest as practice, and then tonight's homework will be the back of that worksheet, okay? So the back of that worksheet looks like this. It starts with 2 values, and then it goes into systems, and then we're practicing our postulates and theorems at the bottom. Okay, so again, this is leading us into, I would probably star this. You will see this exact layout on the test where we're asking you to practice your postulates and theorems. So this is a very important part of this worksheet. Okay? All right, so to help you, to aid you in the back of that worksheet, from yesterday's notes, 3-2 Unit 4 notes, they looked like this. Remember I told you to grab these before we started the video? Again, if you have not printed them, if you've lost your copy, it's in the Schoology folder under notes. And I suggest printing them out because we're going to work these 2 examples right here. We purposely left them blank the other day when we went over these notes. So that's where we are right now. And these examples will aid you in the back of that worksheet. Okay. These are just examples. So I'm giving you measure of angle 2, 4, and 6. So the first thing that I did was I'm giving you a diagram. So on your paper, draw this diagram, because on your notes paper, or you could use the one at the top. Yeah, it's the same as the one at the top. I've put my parallel line indicators, just like we did in our notes the other day. So it's the exact same example. I shaded the interior, I highlighted my transversal, and I notated my parallel lines. So we've already worked the top 3 examples. We're doing example 4 and 5. I just have them on a separate sheet of paper already worked. All right, so here, angle 2 and angle 6 are corresponding angles. And what do we know about corresponding angles? They are congruent. So therefore, I'm going to set their 2 measures equal to each other. And notice I have an x and a y. And guys, if you're given 3 angle measures, that's your cue for systems. All right, so let's go back and talk about systems. If that is something that you struggled with in the pre-algebra week, and guys, that was kind of a crazy week. It was before school had we were all virtual. It was all online. Systems is really big in Algebra 1. So if that is something that you struggle with, go back to Khan Academy, look up a couple of videos on systems, even go back in Schoology and look up a couple of our videos in there. They're still posted in the Unit 0 Algebra Review section if you want to go back and take a peek, okay? So here, once I set them equal to each other, I'm going to move everything over, setting my system equal to 0. I want my x and my y on the same side. All right, now I see 4 and 6 are consecutive interior angles, which means they are supplementary. So I'm going to add them together, setting them equal to 180, combine like terms, and I get 8x minus 6y equals 180. Now, visual, here's my first here's my second equation to use for my system. Okay? Now, what I notice is I have a negative 6y and a positive 3y. So I'm going to multiply this equation by 2, and I'm showing you, here he is right here. 2 times 2x, 2 times 3y, 2 times 0. Okay? Now, I can combine these two equations to get 12x. My y's cancel. 12x equals 180, therefore x is 15. Now I'm going to take my value of x and I'm going to plug it into this equation right here. You could have plugged it into either one. Students typically pick the equation with the smaller numbers. So now I know 2 times 15 plus 3y equals 0. And therefore I get y is negative 10. Now don't panic if you get a negative. That's okay. Because look, when you plug in those values of x and y, you get nice positive angle measures. But ask yourself, does your angle measures, do they make sense? Angle 2 and angle 6 are corresponding, which means they should be congruent. Well, they're both 50 degrees. And then we said 4 and 6 are supplementary, so those two should add to give you 180. 130 plus 50 is 180. Guys, math should make sense. Does your answer make sense? Go back and check it. Okay, so this is the first example, and these are just like numbers 3 and 4 on the back of your worksheet. Okay, number 3 and 4 on the back of your parallel lines and transversal worksheet number 2. All right, here's our second example that is listed on your notes. I gave you angle 5, 3, and 1. The first relationship I see is 1 and 5 are corresponding angles, which means they're congruent. And then I see that 3 and 5 are consecutive interior, which means they're supplementary. So I set these two equal to each other, and then I move my x and my y over, getting this equation, 5x plus 2y is equal to 0. And then I added these two together, setting it equal to 180. Combine like terms, and I get negative 3x plus 6y equals 180. Guys, these are my two equations. They're what I'm working with, okay? That's what I'm going to be looking for in your work. Now, I notice that I have a negative 3 and a positive 5, and a 6 and a 2. All right, so I notice that I can very easily multiply that y and cancel out my y values. So I'm going to multiply every single term by negative 3 to get negative 15x minus 6y equals 0, so that my y values cancel. I'm left with negative 18x equals 180, and x is negative 10. Now again, most students pick the equation with the lower, smaller numbers. So I'm going to take my negative 10 and plug it into 5x plus 2y equals 0. And I get y is 25. Then you can plug it in and get each angle measure once you know your x and your y. Guys, ask yourself, should 5 and 1 be equal? Yes, we said that they're congruent because they're corresponding. Should 3 and 5 add to 180? Yes, because we said they're supplementary due to that they are consecutive interior angles. Now, these are two examples that will help you with these two problems on the back of this worksheet right here. 1 and 2 are just like number 13 on the front, and 3 and 4 are just like these two examples that I just gave you.